Joining us now is the Pauline Hanson's One Nation candidate for the seat of Calare, Jennifer Hughes. Good afternoon, Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Damien. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thanks. I had a great break. Did you have a good Easter?
Had a lovely Easter, thank you. It was a little bit stressful trying to get things organised for pre-poll this week, but we got there in the end and enjoyed some beautiful weather, so it was good.
Oh, that's great to hear. I think it's fair to say it's been a bit of a low-key approach to the election this year. How are you finding it out there amongst the electorate?
Low-key for whom? For me or for everybody
Well, I haven't
else?
seen too many posters of you around, Jennifer. Yeah. I don't know if that means low-key or not.
Well, it doesn't help when people steal them, Damien.
No. There's been a bit of that, I think, for everyone.
It has been low-key for me. Look, I'm not a politician. I'm just an ordinary, everyday Australian. One Nation candidates all have to fund their own campaigns. So it's not as easy for me as it is for a couple of the other candidates running. I'm also working full-time. So I've been trying to put up my call floats around the place to let people know that I'm running, and they're being taken down faster than I can put them up. So, look, it is what it is. But I've been to a couple of Meet the Candidate forums, which have gone really well, and just getting out and about this week with pre-poll, talking to people. And look, there's actually a lot of support for One Nation in Calare, which is really great.
Yeah. Jennifer, tell us a bit about yourself. We've spoken to a lot of the other candidates, of course, and we will do more of that leading up to the election on the 3rd of May. But tell us a bit about yourself, why you wanted to get into politics, etc.
Yeah, sure. Yep, so as I said, I'm just an ordinary, everyday Aussie battler. I'm married to my husband, Jim. We have 2 teenage boys. I'm a really proud Australian, and as a mother, I'm really concerned with the direction this country is heading in. I never in a million years thought that I would get involved in politics. But it sort of got to the point where this is a really important election, and the most important of my time, actually. And I'm running because I want to try and protect the country I love and give all of our children a future in it before it's too late. This current Australia is not the one I grew up in, and it's really not the one that I want for my children. So I felt it was time for action, a little less talk and a little bit more action. So I've put myself out there, and we'll see how we go.
What realistically can One Nation do to achieve those aims you were just talking about?
Yeah, look, what we're going for, obviously Pauline Hanson isn't running to be Prime Minister of the country. What we're going for is Senate seats. So obviously, you know, it's probably unlikely that we're going to get in here in Calare, but we need those Senate seats because obviously a lot of people are very familiar with Senator Malcolm Roberts and, of course, Pauline Hanson, and they do an amazing job. And One Nation policies deserve a seat at the table in Australian politics, and that's what we're going for. So we've now got representation in all seats, which I don't think has happened before. And we feel like there's a bit of a movement to support One Nation finally. You know, the policies are strong and they put Australians first. And I think that Australians are feeling, you know, really worried at the moment. And I think they're sort of realising that, you know, either Labor or the Coalition haven't really put them first, and that we just sort of continue to get weaker, more divided, and we need some people in the Senate to hold whoever's in government to account.
So One Nation is the party to bring people together?
Yeah, look, I think so. I mean, let's not forget Labor and the divisive voice referendum. You know, One Nation cops a lot of flack, Damien, and I think that it's actually really misguided because our policies are for all Australians, and people, you know, name call all they like. But at the end of the day, if everybody has a look at One Nation policies on whether it's on net zero, if it's on immigration or on housing, they are for all Australians and putting all Australians first.
You said Pauline Hanson's done a wonderful job. What are some of the accomplishments there you were thinking of when you made that statement?
Look, they hold the government to account, really. And, you know, COVID was one where Senator Malcolm Roberts has put a lot of pressure on accountability there. She has been broadcasting for a very, very long time about mass immigration in this country. It's not a racist thing. It's just a fact, Damien. It's affecting everything. This is the reason for our huge housing crisis that we're going through at the moment. You know, when Labor brings in over 1 million immigrants in the last 3 years, of course that's going to create a housing crisis. You know, and I think that they just do a really good job in holding people to account. And with stronger numbers in the Senate, you know, hopefully we'll be able to achieve more, and we'll see whoever's in hopefully adopt some of our policies. We're already seeing that with the Coalition. that they're copying some of our policies. So are Labor, because they know that one nation policies are good, common sense policies, and that is what we need.
What would your policies be towards cutting the cost of living?
Cost of living, we've got a lot of cost of living measures. We've got electricity bill reductions. We've got the fuel price relief. That was our policy, which has now been announced by the coalition. Tax relief for households and retirees. Dumping the beer tax, that was ours as well. Healthcare costs and reductions. So the policies are strong. But at the end of the day, the one that I'm really passionate about is cutting net zero and getting out of the Paris Agreement. You know, this reckless renewables rollout has been an absolute disaster, and it's crippling the economy and it's wrecking the environment at the same time. You know, that's going to save, if we can pull out of that, One Nation believes that that's going to save $90 billion. You know, all of the policies make sense.
So you think that we should be focusing more on continuing with fossil fuels in energy production?
You think that we should be, sorry, you just cut out.
Sorry, do you think we should be focusing more on continuing with fossil fuels when it comes to energy production and not going down the path of renewables at all?
I absolutely do.
Okay.
And so does One Nation. We want to build modern coal-fired power stations and increase our gas supply so we can keep the lights on. No country can thrive economically when they've got the most expensive energy in the world. It just doesn't work. And now with India, China, Russia and the US all backing out of their net zero commitments, there is absolutely no reason for Australia to go down this path. You know, these reckless renewables, Damien, that we talk about, it's just like they are not clean, they are not green, they are not recyclable. They're killing our bird life and our wildlife. They're destroying our prime agricultural land, dividing our rural communities. It's a bad idea.
Do you believe in climate change?
I believe that the climate changes, Damien. Of course, it's called seasons.
That's weather. That's not climate. That's weather.
Climate hysteria has been, you know, pushed way too far. I think we all have to look after the environment. I care for the environment deeply, and I live a very sustainable life. But, you know, this reckless renewables, I'm not too sure how people think that covering prime agricultural land with wind turbines made in China are going to change the temperature, and taxes are going to change.
What about wind turbines that aren't on prime agricultural land? Wind turbines, for example, that are in state forests, would they be a necessary evil or a bad thing or a good thing, in your opinion?
I'm not saying they're evil, but I think you have to look at what's going on in the Kosciuszko National Park, where it's to say this is not good for the environment. You know, destroying the environment to save it, it just doesn't make sense. We all know what goes into these things, what they're made of. It's like we saw also, you know, with renewables the other day, we saw where the nickel and cobalt comes from Angola and Indonesia for electric car batteries. There's nothing good about that, and there's nothing clean or green about it either. Okay,
now Bathurst is a university town. Students from overseas, international students, inject about $50 billion into our universities. Australian unis lost about $4 billion in the last couple of years. What's your thoughts on international students and getting an education in Australia and in our universities?
Look, I believe that we need an immigration policy that puts Australians first. Nobody has a problem with immigration at One Nation. They never have, and they never will. Our whole argument is that we need to make sure that Australians are put first, that they have a roof over their head, that they have an education. I understand that international students boost that economy for us, but, you know, at what cost? At them getting a house over our kids? You know, it has to be.
What are the statistics that show that immigrants are getting houses over Australian kids? Is it not a cost of living, the unaffordability due to lack of housing, not so much immigration?
No, I don't think so at all, Damien, because we haven't seen this before. This housing crisis didn't just happen by accident. When have we had a housing crisis before? You know, like, this is where we come back to common sense. People, you know, in politics can say that things are, you know, as complicated as possible, and you know, that we really need to look into why this has happened.
So how many immigrants should we let in per year?
Well, our policy, I think, is a really good one. It's one that puts Australians first. We want to cut immigration to 130,000 for the next 5 years. We also want to deport...
Is that 130,000 over 5 years or per year?
No, per year for 5 years. Just until we can get ahead, we need to build the infrastructure to cope with the growing population.
Who's going to build the infrastructure with an ageing workforce in Australia if we don't have people?
Oh, nonsense. There are so many tradies out there. You have to remember a lot of our building and construction businesses have gone broke over the years because of, the COVID pandemic and because of unnecessary government charges. And we've got lots of people out there willing to work and lots of young kids doing trades. And we can build those houses, but we cannot do it with this constant influx. And please, don't get me wrong on this. This is a very serious issue. We have got Australians living in cars and in tent cities who are working full-time with their families. Now, that is not right. Everybody is more than happy for immigrants and international students to come in and get their education and to live in the lucky country. But we have to make sure that we look after our own first. We also want to introduce an 8-year waiting period for citizenship and welfare.
Okay, we've got I'm going to give everyone the same amount of time. You've got about 30 seconds to go, Jennifer.
Okay. And we want to register migrants that come from countries which foster extremist ideologies. We have got to get this country back on track, and I'm for putting Australians first and the Aussie battlers first, and One Nation's got strong policies to do that, and that's why I believe people should vote for One Nation.
Can I just get a quick answer on this? Nuclear or no nuclear for Australia?
Nuclear, absolutely, all the way. But the sooner the better.
Sooner the better for that. But climate change isn't real. Cut back immigration as well to 130,000 over 5 years per year. Okay, Jennifer, well, it's been great chatting with you. I guess the 3rd of May is going to be illuminating for so many people around here. But good luck with the rest of your campaign.
Absolutely.
Thanks for chatting with us today. Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There you go. That is the One Nation candidate for Calare, Jennifer Hughes.